I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I've been with my wife, Jessica, for about 5 years now. We got married last summer. On paper, everything looked perfect: great jobs, a nice house, friends who admired us. But behind closed doors, things weren't as rosy as they seemed. Honestly, the first sign started about 6 months ago. Jessica became more irritable, snapping at me over small things, and she was unusually secretive about her phone. I'd catch her hiding it or quickly locking the screen when I walked into the room. She started canceling plans with friends last minute, saying she was busy, but I could tell she was avoiding something. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe she was just stressed or had some personal stuff going on. I tried to be supportive like I always am, but a nagging feeling grew inside me that something was off. Then came the nights when she'd stay up late. I'd be in bed, trying to sleep, and her phone would vibrate on the nightstand. I'd see her glance at it quickly before turning over or putting it face down. I told myself I was overthinking it, but the truth is, I felt this gnawing suspicion that she was hiding something. She'd always been a little bitchy about my own phone, accusing me of hiding conversations, but now I wondered if she was doing the same thing. The real turning point came a couple of weeks ago. I was cleaning up the living room and I noticed her phone left unlocked for a second. My curiosity got the better of me, so I peeked. What I saw made my stomach drop. There were messages, texts that didn't make sense at first, then I started reading between the lines. She was texting someone named Tom, and the words weren't innocent. They were flirty, full of "miss you" and "can't wait to see you again." I scrolled through the messages and they got more intimate. She was talking about meeting up, about sex, about how she still loved him. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My whole world suddenly tilted. Jessica always told me she loved me, that she was faithful, that her past was behind her. And here she was, texting her college ex Tom, saying she still loved him, reminiscing about their sexcapades, planning to see him behind my back. I don't think I've ever been so angry and hurt all at once. I wanted to confront her right then, but I also felt this wave of betrayal so deep that I hesitated, trying to process what I'd just discovered. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. I kept going over those messages, over her words, how she'd said she loved him, how she missed the sex, how she was planning to meet him. I felt stupid for not noticing sooner, for not seeing the signs clearly. I guess I'd been blind because I wanted to believe in us so badly, but the truth was staring me right in the face. The next morning I decided I couldn't keep quiet. I needed to confront her. I found her in the kitchen, pretending to be busy making coffee. She looked annoyed when I walked in, like she knew I was about to ruin her day. I just looked at her, my heart pounding. I told her I knew about the messages, about Tom, about everything. Her face twisted into this bitchy smirk, like she thought she was clever, like she could lie her way out of it. "Mark," she said, voice dripping with fake innocence, "you're overreacting. It's just some stupid text. It doesn't mean anything. You're imagining things." Her eyes were cold and she dismissed it like it was nothing, but I wasn't buying it. I told her I had read every message, that I knew she'd been lying to me for months. Her response: she dismissed me again, called me paranoid, said I was insecure. That's when I saw her true colors. Jessica's always been bitchy, but this was on another level. She was trying to gaslight me, to make me doubt what I saw. I was furious. I told her I didn't want to be with someone who cheated, who lied and played with my feelings like that. She just rolled her eyes and said, "Whatever, Mark. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Besides, Tom's just an ex. It's not like I'm cheating on you now." It hit me then how callous she was. That she could lie so easily, so convincingly, while I was standing there feeling like someone had ripped my chest open. I felt this wave of betrayal, a mixture of anger, sadness, and pure disappointment in the woman I thought I knew. She shrugged me off, went back to her coffee, and basically told me to get over it. That was the moment I realized I was just a placeholder, a comfort for her, while she was secretly still hung up on her ex. I wanted to scream, break something, but I just clenched my fists. I knew I had to decide then and there what I was going to do. I couldn't keep living like this, not knowing if she was texting Tom behind my back, not knowing if she was pretending to love me while secretly planning her next move. The trust was gone, shattered into a million pieces. I looked at her, and for the first time I saw someone I didn't recognize. The woman I married, the woman I loved, she'd turned into this bitchy, manipulative person who thought she could get away with anything. And I knew, deep down, that I had to do something about it. After I confronted her that morning, Jessica just laughed it off, said I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid, that she'd never cheat on me. Her words felt like knives, but inside I was boiling. I told her I wasn't interested in her lies and that I needed some space. I told her I was done talking for now. Honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to do yet, but I knew I couldn't stay in that house with her anymore, not without feeling like I'd been completely played. I spent the rest of that day trying to keep my head clear. I kept going over everything, how she dismissed me, how she tried to gaslight me. I was furious at myself for not catching on earlier, for not seeing how she'd been sneaking around behind my back. And I was furious at her too. Jessica always had that bitchy edge. She could be charming when she wanted, but underneath it all, she was manipulative and selfish. I guess I'd been blind because I loved her, but now I saw her for what she really was, someone who lied, cheated, and played me like a fool. That night I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about the texts, about the woman I married, turning into this stranger. I started feeling this deep sense of loss, not just for the marriage I thought we had, but for the trust I'd lost in her. It felt like she'd taken a part of me and I couldn't get it back. I decided I had to be strategic. I couldn't just blow up and accuse her again. She'd deny everything and I'd look like a crazy guy. No, I needed a plan. So I started thinking about what I could do. I didn't want to just confront her again and risk her lying her way out of it. I decided I needed proof, something more concrete. I remembered she'd been sneaking her phone into the bathroom or hiding it in her purse when she went out with friends. I wasn't about to stalk her, but I knew enough about her habits now. I could plant a little hidden recorder or catch her when she thought she was alone. I wanted to catch her red-handed, to see her lying straight to my face if she decided to deny it again. Meanwhile, I also took some time to reflect on how I'd gotten here. I thought about the years I'd invested in this relationship, how I'd always tried to be supportive and understanding, how I'd ignored the signs because I was too in love to see the truth. It stung, but I had to admit I'd been naive. Jessica wasn't the woman I thought she was. She was a bitchy, manipulative liar, and I was just a fool for believing otherwise. The question now was whether I'd stay and try to fix this or cut my losses and walk away. Honestly, part of me still wanted to believe she'd change, that if I called her out hard enough, she'd realize she'd crossed a line. But deep down, I knew better. There was no fixing this kind of betrayal. I'd been too much of a fool for too long. I just didn't want to keep living in this relationship where I was constantly second-guessing myself, where trust was broken beyond repair. The pain of it all was overwhelming, but I knew I had to make a decision soon. Over the next few days, I kept my distance from Jessica. I didn't want to give her any indication I was onto her, but I was gathering my thoughts, planning my next move. I started discreetly setting up a small voice recorder in my room, hoping to catch her talking or texting behind my back when she thought no one was around. I knew it was sneaky, but honestly I was desperate for proof, something solid that I could hold over her head if it came to that. She noticed I was distant, of course. Jessica's the kind of girl who notices everything, and she started giving me these bitchy looks, acting like I was the one overreacting. She threw little digs at me, saying I was being paranoid, that I was crazy for suspecting her. Her tone was dismissive, like she thought she could keep me in the dark forever and I'd just accept it. But I didn't. I was tired of being lied to, tired of feeling like I was walking on eggshells around her. One night, I was in the living room pretending to watch TV, but I had the recorder tucked away in my pocket. Jessica came home late from her book club, which I now knew was just her excuse for sneaking out to meet Tom. She was acting weird, more bitchy than usual, scrolling through her phone with a nervous energy. Then she started talking out loud, not realizing I was listening. I caught snippets of her talking to someone. I think she was texting Tom again. She kept mentioning their secret meetup and how she'd finally get to see him tonight, that she missed him so much. Hearing her say that made my blood boil. It was like getting punched in the stomach all over again. I felt so betrayed. The woman I married was planning to cheat, to have sex with her ex behind my back again. The betrayal wasn't just about the texts. It was about her lying to my face, pretending everything was okay while she was still hung up on her college ex. I sat there, fists clenched, trying to hold back the rage. I knew I'd have to confront her again, but this time I'd be prepared. I had the proof I needed. The next day was when I finally decided I'd had enough. I sat her down in the living room, this time with the recorder on the table between us. I told her I knew everything about Tom, about her plans, about her lies. I played the recordings I'd made, and her face turned pale at first. Despite that, her bitchy attitude kicked in fast. She tried to deny it, saying I was just paranoid, that I was crazy for suspecting her. But I just looked at her and said, "Jessica, I have proof. I heard you talking about meeting him tonight, about still loving him. Don't lie to me anymore." She tried to spin it, of course, said she'd never do something so stupid, that I was overreacting. But I wasn't having it. I told her I was done with the lies, the cheating, the manipulation. I told her I wasn't going to stay married to someone who was still in love with her ex, who was planning to cheat on me again. Her reaction: she threw a tantrum, calling me crazy, saying I was destroying our marriage over some stupid texts. But I could see the truth in her eyes. She knew she was caught, and she didn't care. It was a turning point. I realized I'd been a fool for so long, trying to save something that was already broken. I felt this overwhelming sadness, but also this strange sense of relief. I no longer had to pretend I believed her lies. I knew the truth now, and that changed everything. I looked at her, and for the first time I saw her not as my wife, but as someone I could no longer trust. And honestly, I already knew what I had to do. After I showed her the recordings and laid everything out, Jessica's bitchy mask finally slipped. Her face drained of color, and for a moment she just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Then she snapped back into her usual manipulative attitude, trying to turn things around. She started crying, blaming me for not trusting her, saying I was crazy and paranoid. She told me I was ruining her life, that I was controlling and insecure, but I wasn't buying her act anymore. I told her enough was enough. I said I couldn't stay with someone who was still in love with her ex, who was planning to cheat on me and lie to my face. I told her I was done pretending everything was fine, that I wanted her gone. That was the moment I realized I'd reached the limit of what I was willing to tolerate. My heart felt like it had been shattered, but a part of me also felt this strange release, like I was finally free from the deception. Jessica's reaction was classic. She became bitchy again, arguing that I was overreacting and that she'd never really loved Tom. She claimed she only texted him out of boredom, that it was no big deal, and that I was stupid for making a scene over some stupid college guy. She kept saying she loved me and that I was the only one for her, but I could see the fake tears and hear the bitterness in her voice. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was ruining everything, that I was the one pushing her away. But I didn't care anymore. I'd heard enough lies. I told her she needed to pack her stuff and leave. I wasn't going to have this kind of betrayal in my life. I felt this intense mix of anger, sadness, and disgust. It was like I'd been living in a nightmare, pretending everything was okay while she was secretly planning her escape to her ex. I knew I had to take control now, to finally stand up for myself and get out of this toxic situation. She argued, begged, even tried to make me feel guilty, but I was done playing her game. I took her bags and she left that afternoon. She didn't say much, just her usual bitchy attitude, throwing some parting shots over her shoulder. As she drove away, I sat there in the house, feeling raw but strangely relieved. For the first time in a while, I could breathe properly again. I knew I'd made the right choice, even if it hurt like hell. The betrayal was a punch to the gut, but it also opened my eyes to who she really was. And honestly, I felt a strange sense of freedom. I was finally out of that toxic mess, and I knew I needed to rebuild myself from the ground up. In the days that followed, I felt like I was waking up from a long nightmare. The house was eerily quiet without her bitchy attitude, her little lies echoing in my mind. I spent a lot of time reflecting, trying to understand how I'd let myself get so blindsided. Honestly, I'd been so blinded by love that I ignored all the obvious signs. But now, with her gone and everything out in the open, I finally saw clearly. I won't lie, it hurt like hell. The betrayal cut deep. I kept thinking about all the moments I'd trusted her, all the times I'd ignored my gut feeling because I didn't want to believe she could do this. But I also realized how much better off I was without her bitchy, manipulative ass. I started seeing this as a wake-up call, a harsh but necessary lesson about trust and boundaries. I've since moved out, started therapy, and slowly rebuilding my life. It's not easy, but I know I'm better off without someone who could lie and cheat so easily. I learned that love isn't enough if it's built on deception and betrayal. I learned that sometimes you have to walk away from what's toxic, even if it hurts. And I've come to understand that not everyone is worth your trust, especially someone who can be so bitchy and selfish behind your back. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs no matter how much you love someone. Because in the end, betrayal isn't just about the sex or the texts, it's about respect. And if someone disrespects you enough to lie, cheat, and manipulate, then they're not worth your time or your pain. I don't regret what happened. It's made me stronger, more cautious, and smarter about who I let into my life. And I hope anyone who's going through something similar finds the strength to walk away, just like I did. Because no matter how much it hurts, you're better off on your own than stuck with someone who treats you like Jessica treated me, like you're just an option, not a priority.